Hey everybody, welcome. Did I startle you?
Yeah, we've got
Welcome to the Common Censored live stream. It's a pleasure to have you here, especially you. You know who you are. Welcome. And for those of you who don't know, we do these fairly regularly, and we like to raise money for people. So if you want to donate a couple of dollars at youtube.com/moment of clarity, you can click the dollar button next to the comments. And all of the money this week is going to
no more deaths, no más muertes.
No más muertes, which we will explain more about that if you hadn't heard of that before in a few minutes. But I want to welcome you first. And so we'll be chatting with you for about an hour, and we'd love for you guys to throw in comments, to say what you want to hear about, to tell us what you'd like to talk about. Unfortunately, we don't speak Arabic, which I think is what that is. I know a little bit of Hebrew, and I don't think that's Hebrew. So
it's not Hebrew.
No, I know, I was kidding. Okay. So anyway,
you speak more Hebrew.
I wanted to start off by calmly and peacefully saying, what the fuck is with our government that they can't help people in this fucking, they're all home on like a 17-week vacation while people are there. Have you seen the food lines? The food lines are 5 hours long for people waiting to survive. And we have this shit Congress, shit government. Of course there's Trump. We know Trump's a fucking lunatic, but also the rest of Congress. They go home to their fucking mansions and they allow people to sit in line waiting for goddamn bread boxes. Go fuck yourselves. That's what I wanted to calmly and peacefully say.
Well, Lee, did you see that there was somebody walking through the lines, the bread lines, informing everyone to calm down because the Dow hit 30,000. So
yeah, they had a guy with a sign who was like,
to the people waiting for food, to know that I may go hungry, I may starve, but the Dow hit 30,000.
Yeah, the Dow at 30,000 is really, it's made a big difference in my life. I'm sure it's made a big difference in your life. How could it not? How could it not? And I've said this many times before, but a lot of people don't seem to realize. They think that the Dow or the NASDAQ or what have you matters in your life, that it did well. Oh, it's doing well. That must mean the economy's coming back. No, it doesn't fucking matter. It is like measuring the health of the leeches on a dying person. If you think that tells you how good the economy is, it literally is like looking at the leeches on a nearly dead person and being like, these leeches are very healthy. That means the whole system is healthy. No, it's that the parasites that are living on you and me, that are exploiting all of us, they're doing great, as a serial once told me.
Oh my God. Blast from the past. Shit. Yeah, no, and this is evidenced, I think something recently that I don't remember if we talked about here, if we talked about it on the podcast, but so there's the vaccine that AstraZeneca and Oxford have come up with together, that they're putting out not for profit. And when AstraZeneca announced, oh, we're doing this not for profit, the stock market went down, because if you say that you're doing something not for profit, that basically means, hey, we're going to try to make this accessible to more people, then the stock market plummets. It's just like when Trump said that he's going to pull troops out of Syria or Afghanistan. What happens? The stock market drops. Why? Because killing people is good for the economy. War is profit. As I said once, sex sells and war pays. So you were literally making bank off of killing people. And so when something that's good for people happens, the stock market drops, because it's like, wait, what do we do with that? What do we do with people being healthy or alive or thriving? That doesn't work for us.
Yeah, and I think you said when Trump said he might stop killing people, it was the most clear example was when he said there might be peace with North Korea, and literally they were having meetings that might have advanced that to the peace with North Korea for the first time in decades, and it didn't end up happening. But in that moment, the weapons contractors' stocks crashed. They lost billions of dollars. I mean, they didn't go to zero or anything, but they lost billions of dollars because they figured that the people who invest in these weapons contractors, which 80% of all stocks are owned by the top 10%, they realized that would mean less money for these weapons makers. And so the stocks go down. And then Trump actually said in an interview, which, he says a lot of shit, but said there's a lot of pressure on him to keep war with North Korea. A lot of pressure from the military-industrial complex. Now, I think that he just does whatever's fucking good for his ego, but it goes to he's not. I believe he's being legitimate there. That there is a lot of pressure on the president to continue endless war. However, since we only put sociopaths in that position, they don't really have a problem giving into that pressure. It's not really keeping them up at night. And actually, I think in a minute I'll mention something from Obama's memoir that agrees with that.
So a couple of folks were talking about the guy. I can't remember his name. Oh, Shkreli, I think.
Martin Shkreli.
Yeah.
Pharma bro.
Some folks were talking about him, and he was, I don't know if he went to jail, but he was actually found guilty because he fucked with rich people. Not because he increased the price of the EpiPen by whatever it was, like 1,000% or something.
I think he wasn't the EpiPen. He was another one. But
sorry.
A life-saving AIDS.
The EpiPen was somebody else.
A life-saving AIDS drug, I think it was.
My bad. There are too many of these people.
There's too many of these sociopaths out there.
But yeah, so he didn't go to jail or he wasn't thrown under the bus because of that. Taking advantage of sick and poor people, that's totally fine. But when you start fucking with rich people, just like, Madoff found out, if you start fucking with the rich people, that's when shit goes wrong for you.
Right. Madoff, another great example. He's basically the only person to have been locked up for the 2008 collapse. And what did he do? He wasn't the one pushing the subprime mortgages on black families across the country, was he? No, he was the one who took the money of rich people, gave them money back. Turned out he had a Ponzi scheme, and it all collapsed. And so he couldn't give them money back. So he basically ended up accidentally stealing from rich people because it collapsed out from under him, as Ponzi schemes do. And as I've explained many times, the stock market is a Ponzi scheme. The whole fucking thing. It's not just Marty Madoff. It's the whole thing is a Ponzi scheme. If people were to stop investing and there was no one to sell their stocks to, the whole house of cards comes down.
Yep.
So I think we covered everything. Have a good night. Thank you.
You were going to pivot to Obama?
Oh, I was going to say something about Obama, but actually first let's explain what the donations are going to this week.
Yes. So as folks will know, if you've joined us before, if you're watching on youtube.com/moment of clarity, down where you're putting in your comment, you can click on the $sign, and the donations tonight are going, excuse me, are going to,
I don't know if you know them, but they do great work, mainly work on people's larynxes.
The donations are going to No More Deaths, No Mas Muertes. It's an organization that works at the border, the so-called border of the United States, to ensure the human rights of the people who are crossing, and that are in that area, also working a lot with immigrant rights organizations. They have some great resources on their site that talk about, how to organize.
Thanks, Stewie.
How to organize around immigrants' rights in your area, including, like what to do if ICE shows up, things like that. Thank you, Stewie. And yeah, so that's where the donations are going to today. Thank you, Stewie. We've got a question about.
Stewie asked what we think of Neera Tanden, who is she may be like the top. Like Israel pusher, but not just Israel pusher, but like anti anyone who ever says anything negative about Israel, like to the point where she calls anyone who says that anti-Semitic. She's a horrible human being. Just viscerally goes at anyone online who dares to say true facts about Israel's military and what they do, to the Palestinians and that kind of thing. And she's just been made Joe Biden's budget chief. She also, in a great quote, which I don't have in front of me, but you can find it online, she said in an interview that that she supports our bombing in Libya because we have a deficit and they have a lot of oil. So, I mean, that's what you want in a budget chief, right? You want them to look to countries and be like, if we collapse that country, we could steal their oil.
Honest. Yeah.
Lovely.
That's
she's a horrible human being. Thanks. Who was it? Sean and John for donating. All proceeds.
Thank you for the drunken noodles money.
Drunken noodles money, yes. All the proceeds are going to no more deaths.
No más muertes.
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
So keep throwing in topics. Thanks for the near tangent topic there. I'm sorry I don't have tons to say about her. Just horrible human being, and it says a lot about Joe Biden, doesn't it?
Yeah. No, I
think. So you think he's gonna be good on Israel?
You mean good to Israel? Yes, I do. Good to humanity? No, not at all.
So what I was gonna say about so Obama's memoir has come out, and I'm not reading it, and you should not buy it. Don't support. Don't encourage him. Do not encourage him.
Please don't feed the animals.
Don't feed the animals. Obama. Here's a quote from Obama, which is one of the most mind-blowing parts. I think I'm going to do a video later this week where I go through some more quotes than just this one, but this is perhaps the most incredible. So he's talking about the people that we've attacked in the Arab world, people we claim are affiliated with Al-Qaeda or insurgents or whatever. And Obama says in his book, which you got to keep in mind, this is not a whoopsie. This is him taking the time to sit down and write what he wants people to know his thoughts are. So this is not an accidental slip up. Oh shit, I had one too many tequila shots before that interview. This is Obama, well written and crafted. He said, quote, "They were dangerous, these young men, often deliberately and casually cruel. I wanted somehow to save them, send them to school, give them a trade, drain them of the hate that had been filling their heads. And yet the world they were part of and the machinery I commanded more often had me killing them instead." Aw, shucks.
You know what that reminds me of? It's like when you're trying to drive your car in order to go to the Goodwill to maybe like donate some shit, and then all of a sudden you just mow down a bunch of pedestrians instead. Like you intended to be driving your car for a good cause, but then you just happen to mow down a bunch of pedestrians. I mean, it happens all the time. Like the machinery I'm in control of as the driver, I couldn't stop it. It's
the machinery just had me killing them. And you got to understand, most of the people we blow up with these bombs are not actually insurgents or people fighting America.
Well, it's a nice little cyclical thing, right? The United States has decreed that anybody with between like 17 and 90 or even 100 in these areas that we are targeting for terrorist activity is an insurgent.
You mean age? Yeah.
Yeah, anybody between 17 and 90, etc.
Because they're considered a military age fighter or something like that. So you could be a 17-year-old kid skipping down the road to visit your grandpa, and that makes you an insurgent.
Right. So basically, when you decree that everyone in that area within that ridiculous age range is an insurgent, then of course all of your bombs hit insurgents because everyone is already labeled an insurgent. See how that's just like a self-fulfilling prophecy here? Yeah.
So in this quote, he's basically saying, woe is me. Woe is me. Yes, thank you guys for donating. Really appreciate it. he's basically saying, woe is me. I wanted to help people. And the machinery I was in control of, it had me killing them. That's the terminology. It had me killing them. Well, what were you an employee for Raytheon? Is that what you're telling us? Because that's what it sounds like you're saying. Or were you the president of the fucking United States? Like the idea that he's just allowed to say, God damn it, I wanted to help these poor kids, and I just had to obliterate them with the most powerful bombs humankind's ever known. I wish I could have. I was trying to get the Employee of the Month plaque, so I had to do what they were asking of me. But
yeah,
I mean,
good intentions, right? Intentions are all that matter. I wanted to be worthy of that Nobel Peace Prize. Instead, I just accidentally bombed a bunch of people, including another Nobel Peace Prize winner, which is the only time in history, by the way, that a Nobel Peace Prize winner has bombed another Nobel Peace Prize winner. So that was really special. He bombed a Doctors Without Borders hospital. So
yeah,
that was a special moment in our history.
That's quite a record there to be.
Thank you, Nero.
The first to bomb another Nobel, and thank you, Nathan.
And thank you, Nathan.
Well, hold on. Before I answer that, I want to answer. Believe it was Luke asked whether I and Jimmy Dore have hooked up yet. Yes, but it was like a quick makeout in the back of a bar. It was like.
Back when you could do that.
Neither of us were really feeling it. It was just the end of the night. You go home with the ugly girl. What can you do?
As we used to say in the studio world, it's fucking convenient. So, whoever's there at the end of the night, and you're just like, I could use this.
I'm gonna assume Luke actually meant have we worked together? And yes, Jimmy and I have worked together on a ton of things, going way back before you probably ever knew either of our names. I had him on my podcast initially, probably 10 years ago, before he was really doing the Jimmy Dore show. I've been on the Jimmy Dore show, I think, probably 3 or 5 times. He also did the opening at my comedy special taping, which if you've seen the comedy special, Not Allowed on American TV, which you can watch for free, by the way.
Awesome.
It's free at leecampamerican.com. He was the opening act. I did not include that in the video because I felt that Jimmy probably wanted to be in control of his own, material and things. You normally, if you have a comedian open, you don't just throw them on your video. Thanks, Elise. Because you want to let them keep their material for their own stuff. So I did not include him in the video. However, he did the opening act, and it was a fucking awesome night. I've also performed he's done live things on stages, which you can look up on YouTube. And I'm part of like a panel that he's kind of hosting. Anyway, yes, we've done a lot.
So would you like to respond to this?
Oh, what is this? Yeah, I mean, I haven't studied what's going on much in Azerbaijan, but
wow, thank you, Marty. I'm sorry.
Wow, $50. Thanks, Marty. But I think there's better people to go to for analysis of this. But in general, yes, the U.S. has been a long time weapons contractor friend with Turkey. Trump has been largely friendly with Turkey, although he did tell Turkey, please stop taking over Syria because that's ours and we own Syria. And so he got upset at Turkey for that. But in general, we love these autocratic, awful leaders, and we send weapons to them, and we get upset if they buy weapons from others. So I know Turkey has bought some weapon systems from Russia, and we were like, how dare you? How dare you blow up people with somebody else's weapons? We help you blow up people. You do not go freelancing your people blowing upping.
Your people blowing upping. I like that.
So that was the speech that Trump gave, I think.
I was just trying to see if there's anybody that we know and trust talking about this issue. I can't.
Ben Norton has been tweeting about it. So you can learn more about Azerbaijan from Ben Norton, I know. But yeah, I haven't really been digging into it that much. I did see, though, and you probably support this, that the people were so furious with the peace deal that they, I believe it was the Azerbaijan parliament they went into. I don't think anyone was in there. Oh, they did beat up one parliamentarian, but they set it on fire. So.
Yeah, well, they recently set Congress on fire in, help me out here.
Azerbaijan.
Not Azerbaijan.
It was the one I was talking about.
Okay, but that's not the one I was talking about.
I think we're talking about the same one.
No, because I'm talking about South America.
Like, yeah, Honduras or Nicaragua or something.
Neither. But yes, okay. I'm just now I have to find this.
All right, you go find that. Thanks for donating, everybody. All of your proceeds, none of it goes to us. It all goes to No More Death.
It does not go to Guatemala. I'm sorry. I just had to.
You could have waited a second.
I could have.
It goes to No More Deaths. Guatemala.
Guatemala is where they set the Congress on fire. Speaking of some badassery in the streets, France is once again. Thank you, everyone.
Please share this feed, by the way. Have more people come join us. Tell them to come fucking hang out.
I love that as soon as like we can't remember something, everyone is just like right there with the answer. Thank you.
That's their job. Their job is to tell us what we don't know.
Yeah, so Guatemala set their Congress on fire. But Paris and France has been popping off. And we're going to cover this more in our podcast this week with more details that I would need to,
Thank you, Rhonda.
Reading is really not good for a live stream. It feels awkward and impersonal. But basically the streets of Paris have been popping off since there's been this ridiculous. Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, Jim. Jim's a fucking hero.
This horrific bill that, among other things, would make it illegal to film the police. And this comes soon after, I believe it was a record producer was brutally beaten by...
Thank you, old shaven one.
Unshaven. You always say shaven. He doesn't want to shave. Just leave him alone.
I don't want to shave either.
Well, then you should understand. Solidarity, man. This came soon after a black, I believe it was record producer, was brutally beaten by police. And so soon after that, the French government's like, actually, we'd prefer to not have you film the police at all. And so understandably, and this would also have ramifications on journalists. Journalists would not be allowed to film altercations. And when the police say, okay, it's now time for you to move back, which historically press are supposed to be able to basically go anywhere because our job is to be able to film the shit that needs to be shared widely, which includes very much so police brutality and police protecting the state against the people. So these new bills have, or these new proposed bills have really caused some hot shit to pop off in Paris. And I was gonna,
I know, but
don't.
My God, little OCD coming out there.
Well, because I wanted to highlight these things, but I wasn't done talking about Paris. Now you can. Okay.
Oh no, it's on me.
It's on you. You wanted to play with the.
Jim's asking us to please talk him down that both parties are able to electronically change the votes. So I've spoken out against changing these votes a lot. Against electronic systems a lot. I do believe there's too much room for things to be fucked with. However, that being said, it is more complicated than like, oh, the Democrats just rigged things to stop Trump. Because the Democrats don't run the Georgia fucking legislative system. Like, the Georgia Republicans are awful human beings who are not going to sit there and allow their electronic systems to be just programmed by some Democrat who's like, So it's far more complicated than that.
Thank you.
However,
Rihanna.
I do believe that we need to get away from the fucking voting machines and into a paper ballot, verifiable, easily audited system rather than this fucking shit show. Also, it's easier to rig the primaries where the Democratic system has control of how their votes are run, and if they want to stop someone from making it further in their system, then they can almost always do that. A good example was not the voting system, because it was a caucus in Iowa where they actually stand there and go, hey, I'd like to vote for Bernie Sanders or whatever. So it's not an electronic vote. However, in Iowa, 2 months before the vote in the primary, they created a brand new app that every precinct captain, every caucus captain was supposed to use, called the Shadow app. And guess what? It didn't work for 2 shits. So they had mass chaos on the night of, which is exactly what they wanted. So there are ways for them to rig their primaries easier than there are ways to rig the general. The general, however, there is rigging that goes on, which is mainly the vast majority of it is purging of voters from the rolls, which is done more so by Republicans because they like to purge, because Democrats do better when more people vote, Republicans do better when fewer people vote. So if you purge a ton of black and brown voters, then it's good for Republicans. So.
Yeah, but both parties are certainly fucking with the electoral system. To answer your question, Triana, I am going to quote Lewis Black here. The good die young and pricks live forever. So I don't know that Henry Kissinger will ever die. And I had not heard that he wants to be in charge of Biden's China policy, but why not? I mean, he perpetuated, basically fucking mass murders in Cambodia. And
I love the idea that Kissinger could be in charge of the China policy, considering at that age, Kissinger doesn't even know who's shitting in his pants. All right. And he's going to be in charge of the China policy. Fuck you.
But that's how, but this is how everything worked. I remember I went to a hearing where Kissinger was speaking in Congress. This was like 2015 or something. And there were Republicans and Democrats, at this Senate hearing, and they spent like a good 10 minutes just jacking Kissinger off, being like, your service to this country has been phenomenal. I can't tell you how much you've meant to my career. And I'm like, is this a hearing or is this just some fucking, the communal blowing smoke up the ass of this mass murdering fuckhead who can't even go to certain countries, by the way, France being one of them, because he's wanted for war crimes. I mean, it was just this massive circle jerk for Kissinger. It was absolutely grotesque. And you're welcome. You can't unhear that sentence.
Well, I'll make it worse. I can guarantee you his dick doesn't work anymore. So I don't know how there was a circle jerk. There might have been a
it took a long time.
A circle limply grabbing, but
well, there was, yeah.
What else? Let's see. Lock him up. Mara says lock him up. I agree. Although you wouldn't get many years in prison from Kissinger at this point.
I know.
Dude, and the fact that they do all celebrate him whenever he endorses, Hillary or Biden. They're like, Henry Kissinger endorsed me. Nobel Peace Prize winner, Henry Kissinger. What do you think? Should we still have the Nobel Peace? Wasn't Donald Trump just nominated?
No, Netanyahu was.
Oh, Netanyahu. Do you think we should keep the Nobel Peace Prize?
I'm just like, what did you say that the Peace Prize is now like really just more akin to what Nobel is also noted for inventing, which is dynamite?
The main thing Nobel did was not invent the Peace Prize. It was invent dynamite. And he then realized that might be bad for his legacy, so he invented the Peace Prize to kind of cover over it, like painting peace on the side of the dynamite sticks. And so now the Nobel Peace Prize fits perfectly with his actual legacy.
Dude, it's just fuck. I mean, wow. I got nothing on that one.
That's what you got. Let's see, folks. Please send us topics, send us ideas of what you want to chat about tonight. We hope everybody's hanging in there in these horrible times as we see business after business fucking collapse around us. There was a pizza place next to where I work, next to the studios for Redacted. And it, granted, it never had lines outside the door, so it wasn't like killing it before. But when the pandemic started, they put up a paper sign on the door that said, "We will be back March 23rd." This is the beginning of March, I believe. And they said, because of the pandemic, we won't be back until March 23rd. That sign, that paper sign, sat there, grew old and wrinkly, turned brown, and I saw it about a week and a half ago, still up there. We will be back March 23rd. And now After all that time, the store has put up paper covering all the windows. I assume they're going out of business. So,
Yeah.
And that's a lot of America while Congress is on holiday vacation.
Paid
vacation.
Yeah.
It's a fucking blast.
Just a reminder, folks, we are donating tonight to No More Deaths, No Más Muertes. And so if you're watching on Facebook, you can go to YouTube, youtube.com/Moment of Clarity, where you type in your comment. You can also type in,
thanks, Patrick.
You can also click on the $sign and donate. And that's where the money is going to tonight. Thank you, Patrick. Appreciate it. So, yeah. And please, if there's anything that you want to discuss, talk about, throw it into the chat there.
Propaganda has an interesting topic. He or she says, let's talk about nanotechnology in intelligence and military. So how do I put this? Fucking terrifying. It obviously there can be some good things with nanotechnology, obviously with medical, there can be medical uses, but in general, we are not that far off from people being able to create things in their own basement that the reproducing thing is horrifying enough. But even without self-reproducing, if someone could release 1,000 things the size of a mosquito that can travel 100 miles and inject people with something to kill them or something to make them sick or whatever, it could wreak havoc. I mean, it'd be almost unstoppable. And we can create these things already. Right now, I think they can only be created in a lab somewhere. So it's kind of difficult for someone to get their own hands on it. Thanks, Norma Ray. But it's only a matter of time before people can create them on their own in their basement. And what do we do then? And no one really addresses these questions. There's no, we all think like, oh, they got it covered. Someone's thinking about
and
this
who's
stuff.
The they?
Someone really smart. Stephen Hawking out there is figuring it out. And it's like, no, they're not. They don't have it figured out. They just go along and see what they can do. And then after they create it, they go, wow, we did it. And that's the entirety of the thought process. Same with AI, which we've talked about a lot. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's pretty terrifying.
Well, and we are playing God in this in this situation. So we are creating these technologies in our own image. And when I say our own image, I mean
those mosquitoes don't look like me.
In the systems image. So right now I'm thinking of the AI that you mentioned, not necessarily mosquitoes. I don't.
Thank you.
I guess I mean
Lumpia.
You could make a racist mosquito, but my point was
that if you remember one sentence from this live stream, you could create a racist mosquito.
Well, but think about it, because
mosquitoes are already kind of racist because they do pick different blood types and stuff.
Actually, I've noticed this, that mosquitoes don't like me. I don't know, but I don't know if there is some sort of connection between melanin and like the sweetness of the blood, because all of my friends that are darker than me seem to be liked more by mosquitoes, and the friends of mine that are my same hue or even lighter don't seem to be loved by mosquitoes. I don't know if there's a connection there. I just saying. But anyway,
I did read that it has to do with like the carbon dioxide you emit combined with the type, literally the type of blood you have. I don't know which ones they prefer, but anyway.
Eat garlic. Mosquitoes don't. Well, maybe that's why they don't like me. But I know people. Anyway, this is not important.
I like to hold a piece of garlic and just hold it in front of them wherever they go. Just and that always works because they're like, it's giant flying garlic, and then they get angry and they leave and they tell their friends, don't go there. There's flying garlic. That's how it works.
All right. Well, anyway, that was not the point. The point was that we're creating. That we're creating these technologies in the image. Thank you, Nathan. That we're creating these technologies in our own image. And so, for instance, when we create AI networks, we are creating AI.
Thank you, DS.
That is racist. So, for instance, the AI that looks at, that looks at all of the health data that we put into it, Well, that's racist health data. First of all, because we don't have a non-racist healthcare system, so that the data that's being put in is tremendously skewed towards the white, predominantly male perspective. So that means the idea that the AI and the technologies that we're creating are altruistic and they're progressive, no, because the system that's creating it isn't. So that's also like a very important thing to note, that when the God that's creating these technologies is an asshole, then the technology is going to be an asshole too, but a more powerful asshole. That's terrifying.
Hold on, highlight. Great points. Also, new sentence to remember. No, not that one. Next one. Yes.
Well, I would like to just highlight this one really quick.
Okay.
I would love it if Trump pardoned Snowden and Assange, but I doubt it.
What a beautiful, I said this on Redacted tonight. What a beautiful fuck you to the liberal elites than to pardon Assange and Snowden. It'd be beautiful.
Mm-hmm. So I highlighted this one. This was the one you meant?
Yeah.
And thank you for donating, folks. Again, all of the donations are going to No More Deaths, No Mas Muertes. Carry on.
DS, thank you for the donation. And also it's a great point I hadn't thought about, honestly. I never thought about that as used in that way. I know that they don't want to give us universal health care because they don't really give a fuck. And because even the ones that are not making money from big pharma and big health insurance, but many of them are. But the idea that then they have one less recruiting tool for the military, I hadn't put those two together, but I do like that idea.
Well, you did talk about that. I can't remember if it was on your show or somewhere else, but you talked about like the military is basically like an offering of socialism. I love this. You tell it.
Well, I love this idea that like the promise of the military, when they say to you, please join the military, really, if you shrink it all down, if you boil out the bullshit, you get join the military and we will give you socialism. Mm-hmm. We will give you not just a collective group of people that you'll feel camaraderie with and you'll work together with and feel good about helping your quote unquote helping your country. Not just that bullshit, but we'll give you the fucking benefits, health care, maybe pay for college. It goes on and on. I mean, the benefits that are now granted, the VA now sucks so much that you don't get a lot of those benefits, but the idea, what's sold to them is we will give you socialism. We will give you a socialist society. And the biggest socialist entity in the world is the U.S. military. I mean, think about that. Next time you argue with your friends about socialism, capitalism, all that horse shit, remind them that the biggest socialist entity in the world is the U.S. military, and that the promise of socialism is the main thing that gets people to join up. And, some people join up to kill people from other countries, but many of them join up for socialism.
The economic force, for sure. Seeing some folks mention pardon Leonard Peltier. Yes, that would be lovely too. I mean,
explain to that.
So Leonard Peltier is a political prisoner, as is Mumia Abu Jamal. They are both political prisoners that are political prisoners because they have been very effective at fighting against the state, even behind bars. I mean, Mumia Abu Jamal has written how many books since he was in jail?
It's 42.5. I don't know, but a lot.
So continues to be very active from behind bars. And they both represent significant threats to the state, even just by their existence. Mumia Abu Jamal is a Black fighter for human rights and for justice. Leonard Peltier is an Indigenous fighter for human rights and justice and Indigenous rights. So just their very existence is a threat to the state, right? The fact that they are demanding human rights for their communities that the basis of the foundation of this country, which is genocide and slavery, is the antithesis of those human rights being recognized. So their very existence is a threat. And of course, their organizing capacity, their ability to stand up to the state effectively is incredibly dangerous. And so they were both slapped with some, absurd, charges that are patently untrue.
Mumia, they claim he killed a police officer, which he didn't. But
right, but this is the point, right? That when we see this happening, throughout whether that be, environmentalists who are fighting against the state, whether that be, activists that are fighting for basic human rights to their communities. Same thing with No Mas Muertes. Actually, one of the key figures with No More Deaths was put on trial. He was actually, later found not guilty, but it took a lot of
and
fighting.
his name was Scott something. Maybe
good job.
Maybe Warren or something. Warner, maybe. But actually, they both, I think, are accused of killing law enforcement. And Mumia kind of fits in with the complete destruction and taking down of not just the hierarchy of the Black Panthers, but the Black prophetic class. I mean, and he was apparently an up and coming, really kind of impressive personality who was speaking to Black issues. He had a radio show, etc. And I mean, they just tore it apart between Malcolm X and MLK, and really the Black prophetic class was just gutted and sometimes outright assassinated.
Yeah. So, it's funny. There's I can't remember what it was, but it was like, some myths about the United States. And one of them was that the United States doesn't have political prisoners. Because, one of the things that the U.S. will point out is like, look at this country, and they've got all these political prisoners that they've just thrown in jail for exercising their right to free speech and shit. And you're like, you mean like you have political prisoners? Or I mean, that's different, because we don't do political prisoners.
No,
we do violent radicals and things like that.
No, never.
But yeah, the U.S. absolutely has political prisoners, and those are two of them. So yeah,
we have a lot of political prisoners. Another one is hacktivist. Marty Gottsfeld. He's not very well known, but you could look him up as well. I know he's trying to get Trump to give him a pardon. He's been in prison for 4 years. Basically, all he did was a denial of service attack against a hospital that was in Boston that was keeping people against their will, under the guise of kind of mental illness. Now, some of them did have mental illness, but the hospital needs a certain number of people in there to kind of justify their existence. And so some of them were, being held against their will. And so he did this denial of service attack, and they have him locked up for, I think, 10 years.
Thank you, Gamandi. Yes, just a little side note here. I have a few podcasts, and one of them is Silver Threads with Carla Bergman. And last week, just in time for the genocidal holiday of Thanksgiving, we had on Khalid Ben Ali, who's an indigenous organizer and anarchist. It's a phenomenal conversation with him. He's absolutely incredible, an incredible organizer, an incredible human being. So check that out. You can check that out wherever you find your podcast. It's called the Silver Threads Podcast. And thank you for the donation, Satnam. And yes, I do love Arundhati Roy. So I agree. I do love. And thank you for the donation.
So if we get $50 over the next 10 minutes, we'll stay an extra 10 minutes. And I'd love to do that, because No More Deaths is a great organization. I remember first learning about them. They were leaving jugs of water out in the desert for people passing to the U.S. Now,
that's what he was on trial for, by the way. Was giving humanitarian aid to people that were at risk of dying. Yep. In the desert.
Yep. And something you have to realize is even if you were one of these people that despises immigrants, and granted, I understand that people hanging out with us are probably not those who despise immigrants, but even if you were, hopefully, whether you despise immigrants or not, you are not for killing people. You're not for murder. If you have a moral bone in your fucking body. So it doesn't matter whether you love or hate.
Wow,
Well, AD would like the extra 10 minutes. Thank you, AD, so much. That's incredible. $50. Really, really appreciate it. So if you have a moral bone in your body, whether you hate immigrants or not, you shouldn't want them to die in the desert. So the fact that there is water being left there, I mean, that doesn't make them any more likely to become citizens. It doesn't change.
Wait, water doesn't equal citizenship?
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't change your ability to despise immigrants. I'm right now, I'm preaching to like Trump followers.
I know.
It doesn't change that. All it's doing is saving fucking lives, often of like children who are with their parents or with a guardian trying to get across. And these people have been pushed to the brink, which is why they decided to make the journey in the first place. And so the fact that these people leave water for them should be something that should be rewarded and heralded by all of us as a way a human being should fucking behave for other human beings. And instead, not only do the authorities go around and they stab the water bottles just because they don't want to collect them, so they just dump out the water.
So yes, Armando, they do.
Oh, sorry.
There's actually no. That was perfect. Perfect transition. There's actually video of Border Patrol doing this, of going around to the jugs and dumping them out. And then just like leaving the bottles there as an extra fuck you. Like, hey, there used to be water here for you, but we've dumped it out because we're fucking fascists.
Yep. So they go and they destroy the water, and then the people are off. They can find dropping these water off are arrested, and no more deaths. Does that kind of thing, leaves water for them. Sometimes we'll give them a place to sleep if needed, but. Yeah, it's straight up
legit just humanitarian aid.
Straight up humanitarian aid. Like the real kind, not the bullshit kind the US does.
Not the Red Cross kind of shit, like actual humanitarian aid. And here's the other point to this that makes it like even just that much more fucking sickening. The majority of people who are ending up in these positions where they're desperate for water and are dying of exposure are people that are fleeing places that have been destroyed by the United States. So the United States is destroying their home place and then killing them and then or like subjecting them to a slow and painful death as they try to flee the home place that the United States has destroyed. I mean, that is a level of sociopathy, of twisted fucking, like, it's just a fucking horror show that really kind of embodies the United States and this sort of the mentality and the paradigm of the empire. And it's why it's so important to connect all these issues, right? Because the question can arise, and it should arise, really, like, well, why are all these people fleeing their home place? What's going on there? And then that question leads to the answer, oh, it's the same fucking government that's refusing to give them basic humanitarian aid. Oh, they're destroying their home place. Full circle. Yeah, so it's fucking horrifying. And No More Deaths does a great job also of connecting these issues so that we understand, so that folks understand that these are not siloed issues. They are absolutely deeply connected. There's a lot of there's also resources on their site about the School of the Americas, which is now called WinSec.
WinSec. Well done.
Boom! That just flew forward from the back of my brain,
like the wind in a second.
Very, very nicely played. So they do a good job of connecting those issues. So yeah.
Someone asked if I do stand-up comedy. Yeah, my comedy special, my latest one is free to watch. Stand-up comedy special is free to watch at leecampamerican.com. And yeah, been doing it.
Thank you, Michael.
Been doing stand-up comedy for 20 some odd years. Thank you, Michael. Wow, that's incredible. $20. And thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
No.
I don't usually say you're a man of few words.
And by the way, I actually did, because I was arguing with a friend who shall remain nameless. I've looked into some of the stuff people are trying to share about how this pandemic was planned, and they'll point and there's a lot of there's a lot of things they point to where they're like, look, this group or that group or this government agency was looking into pandemics at 4 months before a year before. They even said it was called a coronavirus pandemic. And here's the thing: if you actually take 3 minutes to look up some of this stuff, the government agencies try and plan out what will go down in a pandemic all the time. That's not unusual. And secondly, coronavirus would be a normal plan for them to look into because it's been around since the 60s, different versions of it. So they were basically saying in the planning, what if there was a coronavirus that was less controllable, more contagious? We didn't know how to stop it. And then they try and figure out what would we do around the world. And that's not uncommon. What is the nefarious, awful shit about this is called shock doctrine. It's called, they know natural disasters like a pandemic are going to happen, and they use them for their means. $4.25 trillion was given to Wall Street in the first act that Congress put forward. So they steal money in these moments. That doesn't mean that they fucking injected people with COVID-19 or that they are lying about the numbers. It means they know natural disasters happen. They will always happen, and they use them. So,
and this flows nicely into this next question. The Shock Doctrine, as noted, is also a book, and it's a good one.
It's a good one. And let's all have a moment of silence for Naomi Klein.
I know. She's not dead.
She's not dead. She's just bought off, I guess.
Sold out a little bit.
Sold out.
Thank you, Matthew.
She works with Big Green a lot. But she has a lot of important things to say.
Thank you, Rhonda.
In the past. No Logo, also impressive work. That's the one that kind of put her on the map. She's been captured by The Intercept, which many great writers have been.
But to get back to the book thing, which is more interesting than talking about how Naomi Klein sold out, there are a couple of books that we've been talking about in our mutual aid circle recently as
Thank you, Will.
As kind of required reading almost. One of them is is Revolutionary Suicide. It's the autobiography of Huey P. Newton, the co-founder of the Black Panther Party with Bobby Seale. It's his autobiography. It's brilliant. Another one is called First World. Ha ha ha. Written...
Really?
Oh yeah, it's here.
It's
been sitting here for like years, Lee. Come on.
I like it.
The Zapatistas, and it's basically a commentary on like how we call ourselves the first world and other places the third world, but look at how fucked up we are. And it's basically essays and interviews with Zapatistas. It's fucking brilliant. Really, really wonderful stuff there. I also recommend this little tome.
Oh, no, not that. Oh, Jesus. I don't know where you got that.
That's Lee Camp's book.
That's my book. It's at leecampbook.com. It's called Bullet Points and Punchlines. And believe it or not, because I believe the two-party system is fucking rigged against us, it's basically corporations owning our government. Most of what's in that book, which is heavily sourced, and you can look at all the footnotes where it's all coming from. I don't just make shit up. Most of it still holds true. Very little of will change because Trump is leaving. It references things Obama did, it references things Trump did, but much of it is about the system as a whole. So if you go to leecampbook.com and you get 20% off by using the coupon code, the initials of the title, BPAPL, then you will learn a lot.
So the book about the Zapatistas is called First World, Ha Ha Ha, and I'm typing that right there. Another one that's really good is a book by Scott Crow called Black Flags and Windmills, and that's a really badass book about mutual aid and about mutual aid after Hurricane Katrina that kind of created the Common Ground collective, which is still in existence today, I believe. Another great one is Joyful Militancy by Carla Bergman and
who's the co-host of her podcast, Silver Threads.
It's like a self-help book for organizers and activists and radicals. It's fucking phenomenal. I highly recommend it. It's your
sorry. I just thought of a great book that people should check out.
Well, I don't have any more copies left.
Yeah. Okay.
It's my book.
Check out our movie instead.
I'm out of physical copies. I'm working on getting the book in digital format to put up on the website. But yeah, you can check out my film instead. But
don't show them my book.
Yeah. Sorry. There's so many rad books. Another book that is important for right now is an Indigenous Peoples History of the United States. I'd say right now it's important all the time, but I'm just thinking, in the week past Thanksgiving, it's a really powerful book that tells the stories that have been buried and really highlights the importance of recognizing history through a decolonizing lens. And there are so many more, but there's a little.
I feel we could actually just keep grabbing from the bookshelf.
Dude,
here.
For real. I mean, yes, yes.
But I don't know where you guys were earlier, but everybody's throwing out great topics. One was somebody asked if do we recommend George Carlin to read? Absolutely, George Carlin does some awesome shit, and he's also good to watch, so you should do that too. And I was looking for it to highlight it for you because I know you'll have the most to say on this. But someone asked what we think of the Rojava Revolution, and
yes. That's another great book. A Small Key Can Open a Large Door is a really brilliant book. It's a collection of essays written by folks that are from Rojava that have fought that fight in that area. So there's two sides of the Rojava thing, and I wanted you to first explain what Rojava is. Rojava is the area, it's Kurdistan, it's in northern Syria, and it's been a basically used as a tug of war tool it's been used in proxy wars for a very long time, but the US has had has worked very much in using the Kurds for their own means in the region. So it's right by the border between Syria and Turkey. And they have done, Rojava is just a fascinating story and a fascinating example of how, first of all, how our perspective on things like feminism and things like justice and egalitarianism are so warped. Thank you, Maki.
But you haven't yet mentioned that they're socialist and kind of.
No, they're not really. Yes, kind of. Not no. So the person I could go off on a tangent here.
They're different than our economic system, correct?
Well, they are anti-capitalist. Why don't you say that? But basically, one of their tenets are based on democratic confederalism, which is a concept that's been put forward by folks like Bookchin, who and their leader, who is still in prison in Turkey, Öcalan, has written a lot about this system and how this system needs to be built so that the people that are most affected have the most say, and how our structures should not be this ridiculous hierarchy that demands that the vast majority of people don't have a say in what happens to them. Really, really powerful stuff. And that is talked about in the book that I mentioned, the book of essays. Also, if you can read Bookchin and his commentary that was also used and kind of repurposed by folks like Öcalan. So
the thing with Rojava is that it is both a genuine and impressive movement of people doing things that everyone should learn about, and it also can be used by the United States to try and push our quote-unquote ownership of Syria. Mm-hmm. So it can be both. And that is how you end up with posters supporting Rojava, like corporate-run posters in Britain supporting Rojava. And the reason is because the U.S. empire wants this Kurdish area to remain autonomous because it can serve as a buffer and as a way strategically to hurt Syria. And the truth is the U.S. shouldn't be involved at all. It should be between the peoples of that region.
Well, there was all this, sorry.
And the last thing that happened that actually got mainstream coverage, Rojava didn't get any mainstream coverage until Trump went to try and pull out some U.S. troops. And when he did that, all of a sudden CNN and MSNBC and Fox News lost their goddamn minds. Their head burst into flames and they were grabbing pearls with two hands because we were leaving the Kurds to be massacred. Oh my God. And that was them saying the U.S. must keep destroying Syria because that is our right. And that's why we're there. And how dare Trump withdraw troops? And the military most recently has said that they told Trump they'd pull the troops out when they didn't. And which should horrify everybody because that's basically a coup, at least in those decisions. That decision-making process is a coup against the democratically elected leader. Whether you love Trump or hate him, he was the democratically elected leader. And so it's like the military-industrial complex is doing something without they're lying to the president to keep troops in a region is fucking horrifying. So it's very complicated.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of, again, like the Kurdistan in general, which is not just that part of northern Syria, but Kurdistan in general and the Kurds have been used as pawns for so many, superpower proxy war bullshit. And This is something that Kurdish fighters have talked about as well, that they're well aware that they're being used, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to accept, for instance, American weapons, for instance, when it's offered to them to fight to protect their home place. And so, yeah, this is this push and pull, and there's conversations, and they're like, okay, well, we're anti-capitalist. What does that mean when we are fighting to survive and have to play into, like the global arms trade, for instance? And there's so it's really, because I feel like a lot of times we have these conversations and they can be very abstract. And they can really be, they can feel kind of like dreamlike, like, well, at some point in the distant future. But no, like there are people that are not only struggling with these issues right now, but they're struggling with them in the midst of a fucking war, a war that's been ongoing for decades. So I think it's really important to look into those stories in that region, not just for education on these issues of anti-capitalism and feminism and egalitarianism, but also to understand how we might structure things differently in the here and now. So yeah, and I think maybe that's a good way to.
It is a good way to end. Except I think I should definitely address Dallin's wonderful point that Bill Hicks is still alive and he's Alex Jones.
I thought so. All I saw was that Bill Hicks is not dead, and I thought that just meant like he lives on within us.
No,
which is true.
People hilariously want to say that Alex Jones is Bill Hicks.
Okay, that's just horrifying to say. That would be like saying that like terrible. John Lennon never died. He is Henry Kissinger.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that's horrifying.
Exactly.
They're like the polar opposite of each other.
They're the polar opposite of each other. They stand for two completely different things. But on top of that, Alex Jones would have been 20 when Bill Hicks died. So he's like 15 years younger than Bill Hicks. And anyway, it's hilarious and sad that people would say such a thing. And Bill Hicks is fucking awesome. He was an awesome human being who did amazing stuff. And Alex Jones is a fucking leech on the anus of America. So there's a bit of a difference there. So. All right.
Yes, Elvis is alive too.
Elvis is alive too, and he is Elliot Abrams. Oh
my gosh, we could have so much fun with this.
Yes, we could.
But we'll save that for now.
So, everybody, we're going to wrap up, but all of the donations, and if you're watching this after the live stream happens, you can still go donate at No More Deaths, whatever the website is. No, what was it? No Mas Muertos?
Well, no, I think the website is No More Deaths something. Okay. But if you like DuckDuckGo it or start page it, don't use Google, then you'll find it.
And they do great work. So thank you guys so much for the donations. We also have a podcast together, which you should check out. It's called Common Censored, and it is free on most all of your podcast platforms. So please look up Common Censored. The second word is spelled CENSORED. And we both have shows, movies we've created. Oh, Eleanor's film just won more awards. It won Best Feature-Length Documentary in one film festival, and that's at hardroadofhope.com. You should absolutely check it out. And all my stuff is at leecamp.com. You can join the email list by texting the word redacted to 33777. It's completely free in the US to do that. So
awesome, y'all. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for donating, and we will see you next time.
click subscribe if you haven't.
Do it.
Keep fighting.
Act out.